Hi guys, it's JLC12 here, and this video is going to count as my annual top 10 musicals I discovered this year video. I'm just going to put this out there now. It's not going to be a big, detailed, scripted, edited video with attempted jokes. Last year's video was so exhausting to make, and it was made during a really hard time in my life, and I honestly haven't had the time this year. But it's mainly because things have been a little different in the musicals department this year. I haven't been listening to full soundtracks. Instead, I've been listening to individual songs on an app called AccuRadio. If you haven't heard of it, it's basically a music app, radio app, where you have a ton of channels. You pick one, and it just gives you a random selection of songs in that genre. And so they have a Broadway channel, and I've been listening to that for the past year or so. Most of the songs that show up I've already heard, being a big musical fan, but I still have managed to discover some new stuff. Some of the songs that I hadn't heard of showed up more than others. It's a bit of a pain like that. They keep showing you the same songs over and over again. But I found the soundtracks to those songs that I've enjoyed over the past however many months, and I just wanted to do a video about a couple that I found. As I said, this is not going to be as intense as the last video, so I haven't done as much research on the musicals this time. I'll try and be short with this, but this is me, unscripted. It could go on for an hour, so brace yourselves anyway. Let's start off. Cinderella, music by Richard Rodgers and lyrics by Oscar Hammerstein II. Right, this is a bit of a cheat to start off with. I know this musical from the 1997 TV movie version that was on the Disney Channel with Brandy and Whitney Houston, and I remember absolutely loving that. So some of those songs that have been in my head since childhood suddenly come back in this new Broadway cast recording. With Rodgers and Hammerstein, I guess I have to say I like them being a musical fan. They're not overrated. It's just they're a bit annoying. They get on my nerves sometimes with their almost insultingly simple melodies, and but their songs are catchy. I must admit that. And with this Cinderella musical, it's just it's so sweet. It's just a lovely. It's pleasant, shall we say? All the songs are nice and catchy. Everything's all fantasy like and fairy tale like, even though apparently in this new Broadway cast version Ella is called Ella and she's like this modern thing. No, you don't get that from the soundtrack, which I am only familiar with. And yeah, it's really pleasant and delightful. And I must say the standout is Cinderella's prince. If you want a Cinderella prince with personality, go and listen to this soundtrack, because he's absolutely brilliant. He's got several moments of humor and niceness and everything. He's got a good solo to himself. Some very good duets as well. So yes, I'm pleasantly surprised with this Cinderella. City of Angels, music by Cy Coleman and lyrics by David Zippel. This show is perfectly fine. There's not much I can say about it except that it's a great story that I wasn't expecting. I've only heard a couple of songs from City of Angels before, but I've never known the actual story. And it's pretty interesting. It's a pretty good premise. It's probably been done before, but I really enjoyed it. A particular song that I really enjoy is "You're Nothing Without Me," which is a duet between the creation and the creator, and they're both singing to each other, and that's a song that stayed with me and has shown up a lot. So I really enjoy that. But other than that, yeah, it's perfectly fine. The Color Purple, music and lyrics by Brenda Russell, Ali Willis, and Stephen Bray. Black Women the musical, and I am not even exaggerating here. I'm not being disrespectful or anything. It is a very obviously woman-driven musical with the story and everything, and yeah, it seems like the songwriting crew can only write ballads. Really, they're not really into all that stuff. Everything seemed to be ballad after ballad, if not some short interlude of black women singing. I must say, very good work with the lesbian relationship and the lovely duet that they have. What About Love? That's all I can remember from it, though. Other than that, this didn't really bowl me over.
Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, music and lyrics by David Yazbek.
Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. I don't know as much about this musical as I would like to. I don't think I even know the full plot. I just like listening to the songs. That I just really enjoy them for some reason. I really enjoy the reunion of Sherry Renee Scott and Norbert Leo Butz. From their work in the last 5 years, which obviously I adore. They're back together in this one, and the standout song for this musical is Nothing Is Too Wonderful to Be True. On the actual soundtrack, which I listened to on Spotify later, there's a couple of bonus tracks of demos by the composer David Yazbek, and one of them is just a piano and Sherry Renee Scott singing Nothing Is Too Wonderful to Be True, and it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
Dreamgirls, music by Henry Krieger and lyrics by Tom Iron.
Better Than Sideshow, which was the composer's later show after this. It's Dreamgirls is still a bit but I must say the composer is much better at writing like pop songs rather than straight musical theatre songs. Obviously Dreamgirls is based on sort of real life, mainly more fictionalized. I've known about it obviously because of the film that was released a couple of years ago, and that was the main basis for the Motown musical that me and my class wrote in college when I was at the Major Academy. So I am a bit familiar that way. But now that I've listened to all of the songs and everything, it's still very middling. Obviously the big standout is I'm Telling You I'm Not Going. It is such a fabulous song. Every time it's shown up on AccuRadio, I never skip it. It's just so fabulous. And Jennifer Hudson, whoever sings it, just you can't unlisten to it. You have to just take in the moment and just relish in all its fabulousness. Yes, so that's all I'm saying about Dreamgirls.
The Fantasticks, music by Harvey Schmidt and lyrics by Tom Jones. No, not that Tom Jones.
Okay, there's a lot to talk about with this one. I've always known about this show, but I've never been extremely familiar with it. But it's completely different from from what I thought it was going to be to what it actually is. It is apparently the longest running Broadway show in the world. And by that we mean off Broadway, so it's not as special, but oh well. It was written in 1960, which really surprised me. But if you listen to that original cast recording, then you can see that it was written in 1960 because there is an awkward story element in it that concerns the two lovers and their fathers. Basically, they want to get these two together, but to do this, they think the hero has to do a heroic act. And they think that the heroic act that they can put on between their children is to have somebody abduct the girl, but in the original Broadway cast, they use a different word from abduction that begins with an R and rhymes with cape. Yeah. And there's a big song using the word multiple times, and it's really uncomfortable, and it obviously is not going to fly in this century. So the new off-Broadway cast, recording that's come out, they've changed that song. They still have it, but every word is changed. But other than that, I really enjoy this musical. The songs are so simple, so nice, and so easy to listen to. Some of them are quite catchy, and I think the reason that I like it so much is because the instrumentation is very unique. It's just a piano and a harp, and that's the only instruments that are playing in this entire show, and I really enjoy it. I really like the sound of the songs, and obviously all the voices are fab. Santino Fontana, who was Cinderella's prince in Cinderella, he is fantastic. I'm really into his voice at the moment. Another thing I forgot to mention with the Cinderella review is Santino Fontana is known now more famously as the voice of Prince Hans in Frozen. So listening to the Cinderella cast recording, hearing this prince kind of freaky, but I still enjoy it. Santino Fontana is perfect, and he's perfect in the Fantasticks as well. He just has a fab voice. So yeah, Fantasticks completely different from what I thought. Some problematic stuff, but if you go past that and just enjoy the music, you're okay.
Fun Home, music by Janine Tesori and lyrics by Lisa Crone.
This was the big winner at the Tony Awards this year, and it's made Broadway history because it's the first musical to win a Tony for best score and best musical for a female songwriting duo, and that is incredible. I mean, we have Cyndi Lauper last year winning for Kinky Boots, and now this, or the year before maybe, I don't know. And this year we now have the female songwriting duo, making history with Fun Home. Yeah, it's been making the rounds of news now, as well as because of making history again, possibly as the first musical with a lesbian protagonist, like a very serious lesbian protagonist, and this story about LGBT themes and a coming of age story and everything like that. This could have been my favourite show that I've discovered this year. I absolutely adore it. But I would have adored it even more if it was the show I wanted it to be. As I said, it's about a lesbian and her coming of age story. And this lesbian is Alison Bechdel, who's a real person. She's a cartoonist. And this is her story. This is her story of how she discovered her sexuality, dealing with her family, mainly her parents, and yeah, coming to terms with everything. And what I like about this musical is that it displays the story from 3 different points in Alison's life, and I think that's such a great way to show it. Now, if it was just that, if the musical just focused on the 3 stages of Alison Bechdel's life, showing with all the songs about discovering her sexuality and everything like that. The best songs in the show are Ring of Keys, where 9-year-old Alison kind of identifies with a lesbian for the first time. That's a great song. And also Changing My Major to Sex with Joan. That is just a fantastic song that I wish was relatable, but obviously it isn't. And so if the musical was just this woman recollecting her time coming out, I would have been fine with it. But the problem is, this is Alison Bechdel's story, and a big part of her story is her relationship with her father, who was a closeted gay man who committed suicide. Yeah, it does have to obviously cover that. I mean, a gay man with a lesbian daughter, it's obviously gonna have to come up. But I wish it didn't, because I really don't like that character. I don't like the father. I don't like how I know he's a real person and whatever, but I really don't care for him. I'm completely on Alison's side during all of it, and yeah, it just takes away. But obviously, I know, it's not what I want. I can't have everything. The musical knows what it is, and what it is Alison Bechdel. It's sort of a love letter to her kind of discovering about her father, discovering her sexuality, just keeping everything together. But the bond between her father and herself is so important to the story and so important to the musical that obviously they can't take it out. So of course I can't have everything. I still enjoy it. Just have to go past the father bit. I'm gonna stop complaining now, and we're gonna go on to the next musical.
Funny Girl, music by Jewel Stein and lyrics by Bob Merrill.
I've always known about this musical as well, but I've only really known one song from it, which is Don't Rain on My Parade, obviously, and Barbra Streisand was the main character in it. Doing a little bit more research and listening to the soundtrack, I think this was a musical literally written for Barbra Streisand. There are literally 6 solos for the character of Fanny Brice. Like, is that a world record for how many solos by one specific character in a musical? It's insane, but I'm okay with it because it's Barbra Streisand singing these songs. And I don't know if I've said this before, but I think that Barbra Streisand has a beautiful voice, an absolutely stunning, flawless voice. Like, every time I listen to her or hear her voice, it's just automatic. Shut up. Streisand is singing. You've got it. Yeah. I don't know if that's a unpopular opinion, but for me, Barbra Streisand is absolutely perfect, and obviously a musical with her singing literally on almost every song is fantastic. Just listening to her voice is so incredible. I don't even know if this is a popular opinion or if everyone is like, she's okay, like she's a bit overrated. I don't care. Barbra Streisand is flawless. The song at the end, the music that makes me dance, the ending to that breaks my heart. Like, if I had to, I know I idolize a lot of Broadway singers and I say, oh, I wish I had her voice. I wish I had her voice. Barbra Streisand has such a control and such like her own personality in it, and just a fantastic way. I just love listening to the way her voice changes, how it mixes, the sounds, the tones that come across. I absolutely adore it. And in music that makes me dance, it's just so beautiful. So beautiful. So I guess I can say that I like this musical. I'm not really cool with the gender politics and everything. Like, there's a song at the beginning about if a girl isn't pretty, da 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 da. But other than that, Barbra Streisand's voice is perfect. Let's move on.
How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. Music and lyrics by Frank Lesser.
This is a serious blind spot for me. I've always known about this, but I've never wanted to be interested in it because I thought, oh, it's a musical about businesses and in an office. Like, am I gonna have fun with this music? Am I gonna relate to it? But no, don't judge a book by its cover. I just dove in, and it was a lot more entertaining than I thought it would be. Yeah, it is still set in an office, and it's still about this guy working his way up the ladder and everything, but it's so fun. It is so fun. And obviously Frank Lesser, who did the music and lyrics for Guys and Dolls, is here doing this music, and really great songs. I've listened to 3 different recordings of the How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying soundtracks. There's the original Broadway cast, the 1995 Broadway cast with Matthew Broderick, and the 2011 cast recording, I'm going to say, with Daniel Radcliffe as the main role. And oh god, Daniel, I love you. Yeah, it's just a really fun musical. It's really unexpectedly entertaining for a musical about an office and a guy trying to get up the business ladder. So yeah, pleasantly surprised with this one.
Jersey Boys. Music by Bob Gaudio and lyrics by Bob Crew, aka music by the Four Seasons.
Oh god, a jukebox musical is on this list. Oh god. I'm just kidding. I do genuinely think this is one of the best jukebox musicals that has ever been made. And with jukebox musicals, you can go of either 2 routes, maybe a third. You can either go the making up a completely original story and kind of like throwing songs in and trying to make them fit into the story, or there is the biographical route where you use the pre-existing songs as like performances, or like to relate to things that happened during the real life artist's or band's career. And that's what Jersey Boys is like. It's basically the story of how Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons all got together and their story of their career. But just from listening to the soundtrack, it sounds like all the songs that are performed are just performances. They're not like anything to do with the story. I might be wrong with this. Either way, the songs are so fantastic. Like, I can't even fault them. Every single song on there is brilliant. It's just incredible. Is it John Lloyd Young who plays Frankie Valli? His voice is astonishing. Absolutely love every single song. The story is just, it's your usual band story and like breakups and where they are now and everything. Yeah, the music is completely what has got it this high on my list of jukebox musicals that are okay to like. Yeah, so that's all I have to say about the Jersey Boys. Absolutely adore it. Absolutely love it. It's coming to the West End soon. I think it's either this month or next month, and I really want to see it. So anybody who's in London, do you want to come down with me and watch Jersey Boys?
My Favorite Year. Music by Stephen Flaherty and lyrics by Lynn Ahrens.
My Favorite Year. This is an obscure musical. I've never heard of this show before. I just wanted to mention it because a couple of songs did show up on AccuRadio as I was listening, but and they're fine. The main thing I thought was, oh, this is really sweet, and the songwriting duo are trying really, really hard to be like really sincere and like whimsical and just nice and everything. But I just want to mention it here because the songwriting duo are Stephen Flaherty and Lynn Ahrens. And I'm familiar with their work because of my childhood obsession with Anastasia, the animated film. They wrote the songs for that. And doing a bit more research on them, I've come to the conclusion that I think they wanted to be the Alan Menken and Howard Ashman for Disney before Alan Menken and Howard Ashman got to them. The two songwriting duos kind of started at the same time doing theatre, but then obviously Alan Menken and Howard Ashman were asked to sign on to The Little Mermaid for Disney, and Stephen Flaherty and Lynn Ahrens were actually meant to do a collaboration with Howard Ashman and or Alan Menken, but it never went through. And obviously the success of Alan Menken and Howard Ashman, it did wonders, sparked off the whole Disney animation renaissance and everything. While Stephen Flaherty and Lynn Ahrens only really got their chance to write for a family animated musical with Anastasia. I think that they are what Alan Menken and Howard Ashman would have gone back to if they hadn't had such a big hit with the Disney films. Stephen Flaherty and Lynn Ahrens stayed on Broadway on theatre and have written numerous shows, including My Favourite Year and another one that I'm going to mention later. And yeah, I just wanted to mention it because their music could easily fit into a Disney musical. It just the sound of it, all the songs you hear, there's just something Disney about them, and I can't really put my finger on it. But yeah, it would be absolutely fantastic if they got their hands on a Disney musical or just another animated musical, because they really have the tone, the style of music. It's very Disney. I'll try and explain further when I mention them later in this video.
The Pajama Game, music and lyrics by Richard Adler and Jerry Ross.
I've always known about the Pajama Game as well. I mainly know the songs 7.5 Cents and Steam Heat. Though I am it's kind of odd with this one because the soundtrack I listened to was not the original Broadway cast or anything like that. I listened to this revival on a double album where Harry Connick Jr. was on Broadway, and it's called Harry on Broadway Act 1 or something. And one of them is the Pajama Game where he plays the main lead, and another is another jazz show thing, I don't know. So I listened to it that way, and yeah, it's surprisingly good. I don't know what I was expecting. It's another old one, so sort of a blind spot. Harry Connick Jr.'s voice is fab. I've always thought that. Yeah, ever since I heard It Had to Be You on a music channel somewhere. Yeah, his voice is incredible, and it's stunning on the Pajama Game soundtrack. Kelly O'Hara, who I've become more acquainted with thanks to AccuRadio, and she has a stunning voice as well. I just love hearing all these different soundtracks with Kelly O'Hara's voice because she's done so many different things. She's done The Light in the Piazza, she's done South Pacific. She just won a Tony Award for The King and I this year, and yeah, it's great to hear us do all of these different types of musicals. And the Pajama Game is pretty great. It's a nice musical. It's a nice 50s, 60s musical that I can take or leave. But yeah.
Passing Strange, music and lyrics by Stu.
This is another cheat, kind of, because I haven't actually listened to this soundtrack all the way through, mainly because I can't find it anywhere on the internet. The songs showed up on AccuRadio though, quite a lot of them actually, and hearing those songs was enough to put it on this list of like my favorites because the songs I did hear were really, really good. This is how I want pop musicals to be. Musicals that are written by pop artists and like pop music in them. Yeah, this is what a good example is. This Passing Strange. It's really all I can say about it is the songs I've heard. They're really good. Apparently the musical is about identity and different narrators, and basically a story of Stu's life. I don't know who Stu is. Apparently he's a musician. But yeah, what I heard was great. When I get some money on iTunes, I'm gonna buy the soundtrack, so I can actually finally listen to it all the way through.
Pippin, music and lyrics by Stephen Schwartz.
This is my favorite musical that I've discovered this year. There's something about Stephen Schwartz's music. Like, I've obviously been familiar with him since I was a child. He wrote the lyrics for Pocahontas, Hunchback of Notre Dame. He did the music for The Prince of Egypt, and obviously he's more famous now for Wicked. But before Wicked and Disney, he had a very stable theatre career, and one of the first musicals that he wrote was Pippin. And yeah, I discovered both the original Broadway cast and this new 2013 Broadway cast recording. And usually I'm one of those people who's like, oh, this recording is better than this one and this actor is better than this. I literally cannot choose between the two recordings of Pippin. But both recordings have so many good things about them. Some are better than others, some are worse than others, and everything like that. But I think it just goes to show that both recordings are so good. This musical is insanely good, at least to me. I absolutely adore the music. When I heard all the songs in a row, literally all of them were fantastic. All of them were catchy. All of them were so memorable. That's the thing about Stephen Schwartz. He's kind of got the Disney thing going as well, but maybe more theatre oriented. But there's just something about all of his music, all of his songs that is so memorable and so nice, and it just stays in your ear. It's kind of like he's kind of like the Andrew Lloyd Webber that I'm not ashamed to like, if that makes sense. Yeah, I absolutely adore Stephen Schwartz's music in this. Every single song I just enjoy so much. And this musical is kind of special because it got me back into wanting to sing again. I haven't sung in months. It hasn't been a big priority of mine, and yet hearing Pippin, hearing the songs, I just want to sing them. I want to try learning them and singing them, and so it's gotten me back into this routine of like learning songs and singing and warming up and everything. Fun Home is another musical that's brought this out as well. So thanks Fun Home, thanks Pippin for bringing me back to singing. And yeah, I love Pippin so much. Apparently the story is an absolute mess, but I don't care because all the songs are brilliant. So let's just leave it at that.
Ragtime, music by Stephen Flaherty and lyrics by Lynn Ahrens.
Now here's the other Flaherty and Ahrens musical that I was talking about, and it's quite different from my favourite year. This is their big epic musical. This was the big one. The big historical musical. It kind of reminded me a bit of Parade by Jason Robert Brown, which was obviously my favourite musical last year. Kind of reminded me of that in that this songwriting duo is taking, or the songwriter is taking an historical event or a historical period and just making it so epic, making all the songs so meaningful and lots of drama and everything like that. And yeah, Flaherty and Ahrens have definitely done this with Ragtime. But no matter how much I've listened to this soundtrack, I've never gotten into it. A couple of songs stand out, and as I said, Ahrens and Flaherty have a Disney style of writing. So putting these Disney style songs into this musical about the ragtime era and black people and racism and everything like that, it's kind of jarring, but it means some more of the songs stand out. A particularly nice song is Sarah Brown Eyes. That's one that showed up a lot that I really enjoy. This musical introduced me to Audra McDonald, who apparently is a big deal in musical theatre, and I've only just discovered her now. She has a really strangely incredible head voice. Like, I don't think I've ever heard a musical theatre performer with the range that she has using her head voice so much. Like, it's not even operatic. These songs aren't in an operatic style. Obviously, they're more Disney. But if any other musical theatre performer was to perform a Disney song or anything like that, they'd belt it. They'd belt those high notes and make it kind of poppy or something like that. Audra McDonald just goes straight for the head voice, straight up there, and it sounds amazing. It doesn't sound like, oh, she's gone to a head voice and it's really operatic. It never ever sounds like that, so it's kind of mystifying for me. I feel like I need to listen to her voice more to like kind of let it sink in and like get used to it. But yeah, that's ragtime. I wish I knew more research about it. I'm probably gonna have to listen to it a lot more, and hopefully it'll get better as a musical as time goes on.
Thoroughly Modern Millie, music by Janine Tesori and lyrics by Dick Scanlon.
Like City of Angels and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, it's perfectly fine. The style of music is the jazzy style that those last two musicals used. Sutton Foster is brilliant, but then again, when isn't she? What really surprised me is that I thought this was an older musical. I thought this was made in like the 60s or something, but I did a little bit of research, and apparently there was a film made in the 60s called Thoroughly Modern Millie, that was sort of a musical, if not an entire movie musical. And this musical soundtrack that I heard is a theatre adaptation, movie to musical adaptation, and apparently the songwriter is Janine Tesori, which I was really confused about because how could she still be here and writing all these songs? How could she? I think of her as a modern songwriter. I mean, she wrote the Shrek musical and has just one for Fun Home and everything like that. So I thought, how on earth could she possibly have written these songs? But apparently there are obviously more songs written for the musical than for the film. Apparently some of the songs used were from the film that have been brought over, possibly rewritten, possibly just kept in their original form by other songwriters. Again, I wish I'd done more research, but as a musical, it's perfectly fine. I'm familiar with the songs and it's all good. It's just a nice jazzy musical.
Xanadu, music and lyrics by Jeff Lynne and John Farrar, aka the Electric Light Orchestra.
And yes, it's another jukebox musical, but it's okay because it's Electric Light Orchestra. While I haven't been discovering musical soundtracks in my musical life, I've recently discovered the Electric Light Orchestra and a couple of their albums, and they just write such great pop music. They really do. It's so incredible. Like every single song I listen to, I'm like, oh, this is brilliant. Why don't we have more artists like this? And I've always known about Xanadu, but I've always known about it as the really bad 1980s film that was directed by Gene Kelly, had a bit of animation in it with Olivia Newton-John. Wasn't really familiar with it. All I knew was that it was a bad film that people consider bad. And so I was like, oh, do I really want to get into this musical adaptation? But yeah, music of Electric Light Orchestra, you are not going to go wrong. Every song that they use is just fantastic. I found some new Electric Light Orchestra songs, obviously written for the film, and there's like pre-existing Electric Light Orchestra songs like Strange Magic, Evil Woman, everything like that. And some of those don't really fit in, but there's some really nice songs on here. They're just fab. Electric Light Orchestra for the win. Having listened to the soundtrack all the way through, I'm not sure you can enjoy it in one sitting because it's just so corny. Everything is so corny and cringy as hell. But the songs are great, and that's what I like it for. If you just ignore the awkward dialogue, awkward humor that's put on the soundtrack, you'll be fine, and that's how I've done it as well. So that was my list of my favourite musicals that I discovered this year. You have noticed that it's not top 10 and it's not in any particular order. I hope you've enjoyed watching. Thank you for staying this long. I tried to be short, and sorry for the lack of research and or planning. But anyway, give me your thoughts and say if you thought, oh, I discovered this musical too, or oh my god, how could you have not discovered this musical yet? And probably with my next video, whatever it may be, I will be a little bit more organised and a bit more efficient. So thanks for watching and keep discovering new musicals!